Hello, everybody. I'm Cecilia Lemos-Harmer, and I'm a joint coordinator of TDSIG. And it is my pleasure today to be chatting to Adrian Underhill about teacher development. So, Adrian, thanks for accepting the invite. And one of the reasons why we wanted to chat to you about teacher development is because obviously you are one of the founders. You are the founder of TDSIG, and your whole career has been very much connected and within teacher development and promoting teacher development and fostering um, that. So thanks for accepting the invitation and welcome, Adrian.
Thank you. Thank you, Cecilia. It's good to be here and hello to everybody. Glad to have this opportunity to catch up, look back, look forward.
That's the idea. So let's just start with the looking back bit.
Okay.
When you first started teaching, what moved you into teacher development, your own teacher development, and then I'm assuming further later on getting involved in providing teacher development.
Well, when I left school, I didn't think I'd become a teacher, though I enjoyed school. Um, and then I got into language teaching without any training. And that was a lot of fun in
Without
Nottingham.
any training.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I rang around some language schools and came in. This is 1970, 71, I think, or 70. And I in London, and I looking for a job. And I got a couple of interviews, and I went along, and they asked me questions about English grammar that I couldn't answer. And then another guy, Mr. Cantons, rang me up from the Canton School of English at Oxford Circus. And he said his English teacher just left. Could I start tomorrow morning? This was Sunday evening. And I said, yeah, I'm not doing anything. I can start. But how do you teach English? I mean, I don't know how to do it. And he said, that's all right. I'll come to that in a minute. And he
Oh,
taught me other stuff like how to get into the school because he wasn't going to be there and stuff like that.
wow.
And but it was a lot of fun. I don't say that I was taught well, but we all had a great deal of fun. And then I heard about that there were courses and that International House ran them, and I went on one. And I thought that was a real breakthrough. So different from my school teaching to do that early version of the course, 1971.
Wow.
A lot of fun, a lot of fun. But fairly soon I began to see its limitations and look for other things.
Okay. So you started teaching, as you said, without any kind of formal training. How how were those first lessons? You did you have any kind of curriculum you had to teach, any kind of guidance?
This was a school for, you had secretarial colleges in those days. I don't know that they still exist. And I don't even know if secretaries still exist. And this had many from Europe and a lot from Nigeria, as it happened, learning to get secretarial qualifications. And so some of them were studying commercial English. So I had this book on commercial English, which was quite fun. And I just read a chapter ahead of them and worked it out. And I didn't know anything about teaching, so I was essentially telling them stuff. But somehow it was fun, despite the fact that I was telling them stuff. And with the English, the Mr. Canton said, "Well, just pick up. I think it was called First Things First, and do what it says." So I picked it up, but I didn't know how to do what it said because I didn't really know what it said. And there wasn't a teacher's book. Perhaps there was, but I didn't have one.
Wow.
Anyway, we did bits from that. But I don't know, somehow or other, it fell on its feet in a chaotic sort of way.
And then you heard about this course that the International House back then ran, but you must have felt, why did you look for a course? Did you feel the need for, I think I need to understand better what I'm doing
Oh
here, kind
yeah,
of thing?
definitely, yeah. Yeah, I saw that there was something going on here, and it'd be good to have some guidance on the matter. And I could do so much on my own, but somebody must know a lot more than me, and I'd like to know what they know. Uh, and quite by good fortune, I heard about International House at Shaftesbury Avenue, because we had a young girl come along to the Canton's academy, and she was a beginner, and we didn't do beginners. So I was phoning around and found International House. Oh, yeah, we do beginners. Oh, when do you start? Oh, on Monday. Oh, good. Shall I bring her down? Yes, of course. So I took her down there, and the place was heaving chaos. We couldn't even get up the stairs. There's people everywhere. But I found the person I needed who was thoroughly helpful, enrolled this young lady. And as I was going out, I noticed a teacher training pamphlet. So I picked that up and read it, and soon I enrolled.
And then you're like, teacher training, what is that?
Well, yes, quite. I mean, teacher training, uh, you know, uh, the way I saw it was learning to quite an extent an external body of methodology, of techniques, and of knowledge about language, and becoming skillful at them through practice and getting feedback on it. And I thought all of that was just extraordinarily well done by the tutors that I had and by the teaching practice. It was just wonderful. It was very good indeed. And I really enjoyed teaching after that.
What what I'm curious about what you said. I thoroughly enjoyed teaching after that. How, when you think back and you have your memories, what was what changed in
Oh,
your
well,
teaching?
uh, I've always loved learning. Since about the age of 12, I've learned the guitar self-taught. And I've loved learning anything. I've really felt learning itself to be a kind of rather thrilling. Um, and so here suddenly was a way of learning about teaching instead of just sort of fumbling creatively, maybe sometimes. Uh, Here was a body of something that I could learn about and take in and even spit out again, but work with. So that was what was thrilling. And suddenly the whole new array of things I could do in my lessons and a whole new logic to it. Um, how to practice things and so on, and what to practice.
I I don't know about you, but when I think about, my the courses I've done and how they impacted my teaching, I always think about how it is like, it's not so much that it changed my teaching. My teaching was pretty much continued the same, but it was about knowing, how can I put this in? It is like understanding why I was doing the things that I was doing, and
Hmm.
understanding that there's a reason, there's a foundation for those things, and further on doing the all the reflection and rethinking of things that needs to be done when it
Yes.
comes to
And
teaching.
so you mean you kind of saw a bigger picture
Yeah,
around it all. But that must have affected your teaching. You say it didn't, but
it must have. But I just felt like, oh, I'm not doing anything different from
well, it
what.
didn't change, perhaps it didn't change your techniques in the class, you
But it
mean?
definitely changed my planning, I think.
It changed your outlook, your confidence, your attitude, your feeling about yourself, your feeling about what you're doing, your optimism,
Yeah,
your relationship with yourself and with your students. And I mean, all these things are more important than the actual things we do. It's the stuff inside the things we do, the interpersonal connection, the personal connection, and then from that, the capacity for interpersonal connection.
yeah.
You think that, no, well, I mean, I think that's important, makes a difference.
Yeah, I think so too. And then, um, but then you further on, you also started becoming, I mean, you became a teacher trainer. How did that happen?
Well, no, that was a bit later. I began to feel that though this map of teaching was a lot of fun and very good and very satisfactory in many aspects, at a deeper level, there was a lot missing from it. Its assumptions about learning were not sound. In fact, were not even really stated, but taken for granted. How learning happens was not really looked at, or if it was rather simple stuff.
So would you say that the teacher development or the training that you engaged with back then was it was all about the teaching side of it, but no consideration of the learning
Well, at
aspect?
that time, I mean, there were a lot of colorful things, coming around. There was a lot of alternative approaches were all there in the pot, and teachers were aware of them. You know, there was Paulo Freire, there was Steiner, there was Suggestipedia. John Holt was really important. There was Silent Way. And, there was then the human potential research movement, which I suppose was kind of inspired by people like Maslow and Rogers and what was going on in the US, California, and so on. There was Gestalt psychology, there's psychodrama, both of those using the original terms, not what those two words have come to mean. And I think the foundational thing was laid down really by Carl Rogers, who, recognized or not recognized, has been the spirit of all uh, person-centered approaches to education or therapy or um, to interpersonal relating. And I was at International House by then, and Dave King came over from Eurocenters in Brighton, and he was very much into Carl Rogers. He gave a short talk. I thought it was inspirational, and because what he said was, he said he was reporting what Carl Rogers said. Uh, Rogers says. The problem with education is too much of it is from the neck up. Okay, well, we understand that. It's head stuff like we got at school. Like, it leaves out the feeling, leaves out the body. And certainly the mainstream of ELT was more exciting than what had gone before. There's no doubt about that. But still, there was a lot missing. And Rogers is saying, well, look, uh, actually, for learning to take place, the teacher, there are three qualities the teacher needs above all, and they are uh, personal qualities. They're not topic qualities. Topic is an issue, of course it is, uh, but the qualities that you need for learning to take place are, and it may be surprising to people, empathy, um, and the capacity to be real, to be oneself, to be genuine. It kind of sounds odd, you think about that. So there's empathy and there's genuineness. And the third is to not judge, a non-judgmental regard for the student, struggling or not struggling, doing well or not doing well, messing around, not messing around, not using judgment as a tool to manipulate people.
Yeah, what you're describing there, it's a lot, as you said, it's they're all personal
That's right, yeah.
qualities. Um, there's a lot of teachers, I feel, from my experience and everything, that teachers are so concerned about the knowledge aspect of it, the content knowledge aspect of it. I have to really know, and And to a certain point, that is true. We have to know what we're talking about. We have to understand the language and the intricacies and everything. But that is not the most important part of being a teacher. That's not the most important part of being a good teacher.
You put your finger on it.
Yeah.
And, when I started teaching, Thompson Martinet was this thick. Now it's this thick. Well, where did that grammar come from? Who's creating this stuff? How relevant was it then? But how relevant is it now? Yes, it's interesting. I love reading grammar books, but my grandchildren upstairs, they're not learning the language through grammar. Grammar is miles downstream from what they're doing. It's an enormous afterthought, and it is a thought. They're not doing grammar, they're doing
It's
learning.
almost like a background kind of thing. You know that it's there. You know that you're using it, but you don't have to know the names and the details and the connections and everything. It's about actually using it, isn't it?
That's right. And the brain, it's a huge system, and it's very difficult to describe linearly in ordinary thought, more or less like two-dimensionally, so to speak, in print. What is in fact a complex system. Systems don't avail themselves of writing down in two dimensions, perhaps not even in three. And yet that's what the attempt of grammar is. Now, the attempt of grammar is wonderful and it can be done, but we shouldn't confuse that with what people need to learn, or even worse, with how people need to learn. So uh, what Rogers is saying is, look, first and foremost, you need a relationship, and it needs to be a relationship in which people can explore. And the capacity to learn, the capacity to intuit systems is extraordinary. We, the teachers, if we want to hurry things up, need to moderate that. It's true, but we don't have to teach grammar endlessly. You're right. Teachers have become, it is difficult for teachers because there's such a bombardment of new, which is not new, course books and more grammar, which is not necessary. Later they can find grammar, but you don't need to teach grammar. People find grammar. That's just like children find grammar and help them along. Uh,
No, I know. I mean, as a Brazilian, I was thinking about it the other day when we were talking about grammar, and somebody said, something about me teaching Portuguese, and I says, well, I can't teach Portuguese because
mm,
I don't remember the grammar. And my friend said, well, but you don't have to teach the grammar. It's like, and I was reflecting back and thinking, God, I did study the grammar when I was in school and everything. I don't remember a single thing, like a single term or rule or anything.
yes,
And yet, I am a fluent speaker. I am a native
yes.
speaker. I don't like that term, but I am a fluent speaker. I'm a fluent writer. Where does that come from? It comes from using, it comes from reading, it comes from interacting with the language and just repeating it or kind of thing, and it should be the same thing with every single language that we speak, shouldn't it?
Yes, and if I wanted to learn Brazilian Portuguese, I'd happily come to you as someone who can't remember any of the grammar because you don't need to, and I don't want you to teach me any of it anyway. What I want to do is, let us say we're sitting, you and I, at the table having, coffee or something. I could already begin, and there's a coffee cup, and I'd like just to check with it. And I might say in English, and you just provide. You only provide, not instruct. So coffee cup and spoon. And I might want to say, coffee,
Cafezinho.
coffee's great. And then I might want to say the cups. It's on, and this is a table. Oh, cups on the table. And then we've got the cup, we've got is, we've got on, and we've got a couple of nouns. And then we might discuss the table a bit, and it's a couple of other things on the table. And I might say, well, there's a spoon, which is near the And soon we've got a whole little scenario going just from my observation. Now, I'm not going to overwork myself because I can't handle it. But as a learner, I'm not just going to keep repeating spoon and cup. I'm going to extend it. And you, as a sensitive speaker and teacher who doesn't need to tell me anything except what I clearly need, can fill in everything and kind of, so to speak, cradle my learning rather than do my learning.
That makes sense. It's and then and sense things that would be useful from actual life, like you're talking about the cup. And then I was thinking, would I say xícara or caneca? Like, would I say a cup or a mug?
Okay, and then you might look around the kitchen and you might find an example of each, and you might then you might go and put them on the table. But you'd have to be careful not to be doing it because you're clever, but to be doing it because it was like the right moment to introduce there is a choice of two. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, you're not doing teaching at me like from a lesson plan,
Yeah,
but you're there
observing.
observing, but very much part of cradling. And what you're doing, you're trying to, you're by watching, you're into my learning. You see where I am, you see my learning edge, and then you see what I need and what I don't need. Difficult to do the lesson plan because the lesson plan can't adjust in that kind of way.
True, but I always found lesson planning and something that really helped me with my lessons. I mean, and
Me too. I plan everything. I plan all
me
my
too.
lessons.
I was going to say my lesson plans were huge, like so detailed and and everything.
But you don't follow them, do you?
No,
No, this is the
I
thing.
I often don't even look at
No,
them,
of course not.
but I have them there.
This is very important. You see, I sometimes say, look, only an idiot doesn't have a lesson plan, but only an idiot follows it.
But it's the whole, it's the process of thinking. It's by having to plan. And in my case, I like handwriting, writing down everything that I decide. That process is what really matters. It's thinking about
Exactly.
the exact students and
Exactly.
what I want them to be able to achieve by the end of the lesson, and
That's it.
how am I getting there? And then, oh no, this is going to work. Oh, this is not going to
Yeah.
work with that group or that group. It's
And then you've got to drop that in the light of what actually happens.
in the classroom.
And so you've got this lesson plan, which has enabled you to think through multiple options. It's like scenario planning. You've explored a number of scenarios, which has kind of prepared you for what's going to happen, which is going to be none of those scenarios. But by exploring them, you are kind of ready. And even you've got an aim of the lesson, but that's not going to happen either, uh, unless you're very insensitive and think that you've got there when you're pushing people to get there. But you may get there, of course, it's quite true.
Yeah.
Um,
So would you say that, because I've always been fascinated with the whole um, thing about what sorry, what makes a good teacher. And you talked about personal characteristics, and in all the readings and discussions that I've had around that, I've always come to the conclusion that a good teacher is actually a observant and reactive to what they observe in in the students in the lesson, and be genuinely um, interested
yeah, I think
interested
that's really
in the
well put.
students and interested in their learning, in their interests,
Yeah,
in everything.
I think that that sums it up. And you know, what's implicit in what you've said is that the teacher is, let's talk about the student at the moment. I know that it's a class of students and that's more complicated, but just keep it simple for the moment. The teacher is the teacher is learning the student. students learning the language, the teacher is not so busy doing teaching, thus they have enough attention to learn the student, to watch, as you've said, the student's approach, to find their learning edge, to see what it is that they're biting at, to see that they are not spending time doing what they can already do, nor trying to do what is out of reach, but that they are at the edge between. And so you're seeing their learning edge, and then you can help, you can assist. And there's an interest and a kind of attention, a quality of attention. So, but what's lovely about it is that you then are on the same side of the learning fence as the student. We are both learning.
Yeah.
You're learning the student's learning a language, and the whole place smells of learning. Rather than the teacher's sort of in a white coat, objectively conducting something.
I've always hated that approach or view of teaching as, here, I have the knowledge. Here, I'm giving you the knowledge, kind of thing. It's like, no, question. It's all about questioning and being curious. There is something
Yes,
about that. What you said, you always enjoyed learning. I always enjoyed learning. I think it's not a coincidence we became teachers. Um, because in when people ask me, why did you become a teacher, I'm like, I enjoy learning everything, really, like
yes.
anything and
Well,
everything,
that's right.
so much that I actually want other people to enjoy that as much. And if people don't enjoy learning, it's because they haven't been shown joy.
Well, they haven't experienced joy. That they experience enough joy from the womb onwards, or even in the womb, to continue learning, 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 learning without us interfering, although we try to interfere. And then we send them to school, and gradually something happens, which is the learning is taken out of their hands and given into the hands of a syllabus and a school and an exam system. And then the interest, of course, goes because we're giving them answers to questions they haven't asked. It's not coming from their heart. It's been taken away from them. Now and then we
and
start to talk
and
about
then
motivation.
a lot of the students disconnect
Yeah, they disconnect.
when that happens. I think it's very clever what you just said about, we start giving them answers to questions that they haven't asked, and questions that they haven't asked because they're not relevant to them, they don't
That
matter to them.
then they're not relevant or they're not ready. And they are part of the, so to speak, syllabus of the teacher or the system, rather than part of the syllabus of the learner. And then we say the students are demotivated, which is entirely correct. And then we start talking about how to motivate students. What does that mean? That means how to motivate students to do something they don't want to do.
Yeah,
It's mad.
it's mad. And when you think about trying to it's because it's wonderful that we're talking about teacher development, but it's all about, and we went on about, we got excited about talking about teaching and learning and that, and I want to just bring it back, thinking, because and then I started thinking about my own teacher development. I was like, oh, so all the teacher development, all the professional development that I've engaged with in my career, was it, in a sense, do you think it's like we look for things to widen our portfolio of strategies and things that will feed into our ability, not just to observe and respond, but to have like things on that response kind of. I'm not sure I'm making sense. Like, I'm a we're talking about being effective teachers, and how it's all about being good observers, noticing what the students want, and then facilitating that or bringing things that will help at that moment. And when we look for teacher development, we actually it's about it is about widening our portfolio of things that I can bring and show, not show, but give my students to go on to their own learning journey, kind of thing.
To some extent, perhaps, but at the same time, yes, widening our portfolio, sure. Uh, but it's not necessarily about putting more responsibility on me. Teachers often, at workshops, in almost any country you care to find yourself in, want more things to do on Monday morning, so to speak. Just give me another 30 techniques. Okay, thanks. Let's have another 30. Let's have another 30 activities and go off with those. Well, that's fine. There's no problem with that at all. But it's not solving the problem. It's on top of it's a patch on top of something else. There's something very simple about learning. One could imagine developing learning without materials, just with on a few bits and pieces, starting from the kitchen table maybe, and going from there. Um, without and yes, you're right. I mean, bringing things as people are ready, or dealing with what they've brought in. More importantly, perhaps clips from movies, things they've read, their comic strips or their videos or stuff. Working from there, working with the songs that they like. You can't do all of it, and some of it's not relevant, and some of it's not useful, but some of it is. Um, and working from where they are rather than from where I am.
Or where I think they should be.
Or where I, yes, do need to go out, collect, bring things in, whether they're just ideas, materials, and so on.
And
But I need to do this, and this is what I think is missing underneath it all. And this is why we go more and more for the surface, like ultra-processed lessons, rather than for the core nutrition. Uh, is what's missing is the relationship. Now, that relationship is several. It is the learner with themselves. Now, this uh, young girl was a baby, and then she was a toddler, and so on. And she led her own learning. Adults came along and gave her toys, but she decided what to do with them, and she made the bricks, or she didn't make the bricks. Adults showed her she could put bricks one on top of the other, but just swiped it because she wasn't ready with that. Adults came with their ideas, but she stayed with her agenda. Do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
Uh, and
like
she
I give you the ingredients, let's say, but what recipe you make or how you make a certain recipe is up to you
I need to
because
see where you are, and I need to play with you or interact with you at where you are. Not to teach you to make a tower that you're not ready with, but you are ready with two bricks one way and another way. So let me work at that point with you. I need to see at the point at where now. Uh, I'm saying several things. One, learning, as we experience learning, is joy.
yeah,
And when we, even as adults, when we feel we are really learning, it's probably a joyful moment. I feel, I'm learning. I may not think it as many words, and it feels good. So it's almost what I'm for. And it's spontaneous. It's creative. Um, it's active. It's participatory. So
I was just thinking about that. I was thinking like because I the love of learning, and I'm like, when do I know that I'm learning something? Like when I'm taking a course or participating at a webinar or something. It's when I actually engage. It's
yes,
if
yes,
I have something to say. I want to say something. I
yeah.
want to participate in the discussion. I want to ask a question. Or even if I say to myself, "Oh, this and that," and I make a note of something that it made me think. Uh,
And you suddenly realize you could do something you couldn't do before, like when you realize you just read your first book, or your first book without pictures, or things like that. And you suddenly realized after your first book you'd entered another world, the world of that book, through words. And suddenly it happened. It had been waiting to happen, and then one day, or it happened. And you'd heard stories from others, but one day you read your own book without even saying the words aloud. And then from that, you don't stop and think, oh, I feel joyful. But there's an extraordinary feeling that one could describe perhaps with adjectives like joy, as nouns like joy, states like joy. Now, what I'm talking about is there is this sense of, of joy and of pleasure as part of learning. And we can see that when we watch any mammals, young mammals, foxes, fox cubs, or dogs or kittens, whatever, ruffling and tumbling. There's a playfulness as they rehearse whatever they've got to rehearse, and exercise whatever they're exercising. And it's self-motivating. They do it because it's fun. It's joyful. So this is, there is something, an experience of learning in itself. It's not the target. Oh, I've learned that, though that may be also a pleasure. Secondly, part of the relationship is the relationship between the teacher and the student, or the parent and the child, or the facilitator and the other person. So there is a relationship, and that's terribly important because that helps the learner to feel not judged, to feel accepted, to feel that whatever they do is okay. They're with a person who doesn't judge what they do, who enjoys what they do, who expresses pleasure, but who's not using good and bad as ways to push you forward, as to manipulate, in fact, to get you to behave differently. Who is enhancing your self-esteem, in other words. Self-esteem is a big ingredient in this. And Rogers said that self-esteem is the biggest individual predictor of learning success. How you feel about yourself. Well, if that's the case, we need teachers who help you to feel okay about yourself.
and about
Now,
yourself
that
in
didn't
relation
come
to the
into my
language.
teacher training at all. And it doesn't come into 30 things for Monday morning at all. But when you start to do that, a whole world of other things open up in the classroom.
That's definitely true. What guides you in choosing what kind of professional development you engage with now?
But yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I suppose I could say something about myself, but also about, you know, all people. What I'm interested in is, well, I'm interested in almost anything. Um, how anything works, how locks on a door work, or how cars work, or how people work, how food works, how the cosmos works.
Anything that helps you understand a little bit more about how things
I
work.
think it's, I think it's questions really. Um, I'm interested in, if we stick closer to education, I'm interested very much in drama and what the creativity and the spontaneity of drama, um, improv. I don't mean comedy improv, but improv is often funny, but I don't mean doing improv to be funny. Um, I mean, forum theatre, various forms of theatre that have evolved to help people look at issues that matter to them. Um, I think these are just immediately people are drawn into a world that is thoroughly exciting, and teaching misses out on this. There's a world out there where you can bring people together for an hour and a half, and within 2 minutes, they're completely engaged. And we don't really touch that world in our teaching world. Occasionally we bump into it, it's true.
But not as much as we
So
should.
that stuff interests me very much indeed. And I suppose it has to do with the things we can do, which when we come together, that invite natural processes in us, the natural processes of learning, of openness, of experiment, of interaction with others, because that's important. Out of which comes, you know, something according to the task we're trying to do. But we miss that. There is some drama, and there has been drama in ELT, but it's not around much. What's in course books is there's nothing wrong with course books, but it's difficult for course books to encapsulate and to hold the space for improv, for theatre, for drama, for what happens spontaneously when people come together. That is the skill of facilitation, not the skill of teaching. And I think the thing that I realized and what I was talking about in 1985 when we started the teacher development group is that we've got to see that teaching is not the whole thing. It covers part of what's important, the nuts and bolts, but not the spirit inside the nuts and bolts. That comes from facilitation, not from teaching.
And the spirit is what actually makes it happen.
Yeah. Spirit's what happened. As Parker Palmer said back then, you teach who you are. I mean, that's a pretty drastic thing to say, and you don't have to agree with it, but it's worth pondering.
It is definitely worth pondering.
Um,
Okay, I am going to wrap this up because we talked about half an hour and we're coming into an hour.
oh, are we here? Okay.
But
Well, let me just, before you wrap up, let me wrap up and say it's a great pleasure talking to you, actually, Ceci, because I think what I enjoyed most was, your own ponderings and just kind of interacting with that and watching your own reflections uh, sort of work themselves round. And it would be lovely to have more time to,
I
to
know
go further with that.
the feeling is absolutely mutual. And for me, for instance, when we talk about teacher development, people so often think about formal types of development or courses or webinars or formal readings of books and things like that or methodology and I've I consider, I'm very sure that my last hour was spent in my professional development because it's the discussions that we're having, what you said, like things that you said that made me think, oh, but this is development. The act of thinking about my teaching, why do I do things in a certain way, and what am I interested in when it comes to teaching? Thinking about that is what prompts and pushes me to develop as a teacher as well.
And that can be very exciting.
Yes.
What you're saying is, it's funny that way back in 1987, I think it was, Rod Belitho, he said, and he was very active in teacher development then as now, he said it won't be long before teacher development, which is now a threat to the establishment because the establishment has staff development, which is managed or even directed by the institution. And, there's a place for that. But that's what people saw as teacher development. And they found this idea of teacher development rather a threat because it was saying, no, you don't tell us what, I mean, we'll do your stuff, but here's some other stuff that is coming up from us. And this is what we also need to be doing.
From what we experience in the
Yeah.
classroom.
Which is not being given to us by this so-called institutional development. And Rod back then said, it's not going to be long before ownership by the TD becomes taken over by the establishment. Teacher development, as we understood then, becomes owned by the establishment. And in a way, he was true because, you can do masters in teacher development. You can, the universities soon got their heads around that. And and it became part of standard courses. Nothing wrong with that, but that may not be the thing itself. And as always, if something is a bit wild and a bit hard to tame, how do you deal with it? I mean, that is an issue. We understand that. And yet, these days, there is more and more understanding of, you, you, you see, I'll tell you, things get institutionalized so easily. In 1995, I said I'm going to stop using the term humanistic, which meant person-centered. It was originated by Maslow in the mid-50s, who said I need to use the term humanistic psychology to separate it from psychology, which looks at everything that's wrong with people. And humanistic psychology looks at what life would be like, what life could be like. You know, that was humanistic psychology. And so humanistic education and so on came out of that, Carl Rogers and so on. By 95, humanistic was starting to mean something else. It had already been taken over and was meaning sort of just being easygoing, being nice to people and so on. And I said, I'm going to stop using that. We're going to use this term person-centered. We stopped using it at our training institute in Hastings. Others took it over and, it changes meaning. And you have people that collect lots and lots of nice, brightly colored ideas, but all of them don't add up to a fundamental shift in attitude. They're still about teacher performance. They're not about learning.
And the teacher and the relationship to the student and
Yeah,
how we just
the learning relationship, the relationship teacher to herself, the relationship student to herself, the relationship between the two of them, and then the relationship between all of them. And all of that is a really, we don't stop at at the edge of our skin. It all goes on out there. And we need what's so interesting is to start to see that and to start to see how one can take some responsibility for one's own, emanations.
yeah. Okay.
Anyway, we can go on forever. So
we,
perhaps
we can we
there's
can
more to say, but probably not now.
but final words or final
Yeah, please go ahead.
advice or inspiration for whoever is listening to us about their own professional development. Do you have any final words, like a piece of advice or something to inspire people in pursuing their own development?
Yes, I mean, it's easy to say, not so easy to do. Take a real interest in what you do, what you think, because it affects everything. And the only way to really take an interest in what you do and what you think and the impact you have is when you stop judging it, because only then can you see it. And that's easy to say and just occasionally possible to do. And when you see what you've done without judging, it has a taste to it, an undeniable taste of acceptance of self and a quality of well-being. Yes, I can see myself and I'm okay. And once you see that, then changes start to happen. But when we're judging ourselves, change can't happen. We're locked in. Judgment.
That is a lot to think about. Hmm. See, you were talking about coffee, and I am the one who's done all the coughing during this chat. So thank you so much, Adrian, for the chat. As you said, we could go on for hours.
Yeah.
I could, but I do have um, other work to do. Oh,
Yeah.
the shame work. What is that? But
Okay.
seriously, thank you so much, Adrian,
Good. Well, thank you,
for.
Cecilia, for your.
But just thank you for being such a fantastic partner of us. Then just coming on and agreeing to any kind of invitation that we ask you, and just being such a forever promoter of teacher development and interesting conversations.
Yeah. Okay. keep on at it. We're getting
All
there.
right.